Hi everyone, thank you very much for joining me. Polina here, chatting to you a little bit about the month of July and what is the point of it all and how is it all eventually going to boil down to something. So I think this is one of the hardest things that we sometimes have to face as a human species, understanding that there is like purpose or there is like a timeline or there is a root system. And yes, not everybody necessarily has to ask these questions, but I do. So I'm going to do this for those of us that are asking how to stick our lives together and how to do well during this July. So I feel that for me, this July feels like a very, very splendid month if you don't have any karma. So, for example, you don't have any aches and pains, you don't have anything wrong. If you have made your bed and you're happy to sleep in that bed, yes, it's fine. So it's kind of like wanting to do less for yourself sometimes or less for another is absolutely good because you don't have to try so hard anymore. And why sometimes we ask so many questions and we try so very hard is because we don't have quite yet the confidence or the time or the potential or the freedom to do some things that we wanted to do. So I'm going to try and help you address the situation if you are having a hard time. And I also would like to help you if you are not sure as to how to cook up this month and how to serve it well. So for me, there is like a feeling of an emotional depth or insecurity in quite a lot of people. So this is where their family lines are very obvious. This is where other people's business sometimes is their own if they don't want to see themselves. So gossip, doing a lot of things in a roundy-boundy way, sneaking around, looking after people also is something that sometimes comes from instability and neurosis. And sometimes some of the best healers and teachers and doctors and nurses are people that are self-unsustained. So that means they're trying to work out their fractals by working out another person's fractals. So this is where we don't necessarily have to teach anymore. If you are naturally neutral about your work, if you don't want to heal anybody, if you don't want to clean up after anybody, if you don't want to support anybody right now, it's mighty likely that you are done or you're going to be done very soon with some karma. So when you're feeling bored and you're no longer interested in also other people helping you, or you have a short span, attention span, when it comes to some things, you can't maybe let go of your job, but you don't necessarily like it, it's because you are clean. So cleaning up your fractals is a very, very good idea. So don't go for that service person role, which is what Cancer sometimes makes you feel like you should do. Also, there is a lot of public opinion and mums and dads, and sometimes we criticize ourselves so much in order to get to do what we want to do, or trying to sort of kind of help ourselves along. And if you're feeling very, very weak and weakened by the world, maybe you're going to really want to be at home or make a home or be in love or cook and clean and give back. So that intense need to be in service and get by in the world of people, to have a service job or to be constantly appreciated, respected and loved by the people based on what you can do for them isn't a bad thing, but it's only a part of the human evolution. If you're really looking at the full spectrum of energy that is available now, it's not really as maybe sophisticated as it can be, but believe it if you are there. So if you do suddenly want to step up, or you do want to be in service, or you suddenly trust that service and hard work and being humble and keeping your head down and trying so hard is going to make you somehow complete or unconfused, I definitely trust there is a reason for it. So if you suddenly feeling like you need to make money or progress or friends by succumbing to certain roles, or being kind of like unconscious in your world, it's fine. So like, if I'll just do all this work, it'll be fine. I'll just take care of everything. Look, I'll just spruce up. Look, I'll try my hardest. And sometimes we don't really need to do anything. It's just that Dharma catches up to us when karma is knocking on our door. So sometimes people feel insignificant unless they're in the state of service, or they feel vulnerable unless they're supplying something to somebody. If you are very, very weak in spirit, you might want to do even more for other people than you can So this overbearing and overflowing need to take care of somebody and be there for somebody else and help somebody along is something that we don't necessarily need to learn through or go by. It's just more likely that you won't be able to believe in yourself until you do this. So how karma works and how dharma responds, as the other scale of it is, sometimes we don't really understand us, or we feel very neurotic or polar opposite to really who we are. And we do start Cancer here with Mercury behind and Jupiter at a square. So yes, there is definitely a very, very strong turning of events that some people are looking for. And sometimes to spruce up your life, to get those things in order, to get a lump sum, to get that money, to get that favor, you do kind of have to be very nice and calm and humble. So we're coming back to that sort of traditional tribal place, and also the housewife or the house husband idea. So being very gentle and very nervous and not wanting to break the spell, and feeling like you want to really serve and care for people and help them along. That is something that I've been doing also, and I've done throughout my life. And I know that it's an unconscious human tactic to fix the program. It's like to fix a problem, to try and prevent a leak from happening, to try and prevent a bad situation from taking place. So I've been doing that as well, and I've done that all my life, as it's been part of the teaching and it's been part of the vision of heaven that I think a lot of people had. Like, what is heaven? What is the most beautiful place in the world? It's where people are caring for each other. It's like one hand is rubbing the other. It's like you scratch my back, I scratch yours. We do favors for ourselves and other people. We don't want to maybe necessarily stay at home, but we kind of feel like it is safe, or we don't necessarily want to cook the meal for everybody, but we kind of feel like it's a good thing to do, and no harm is done. So I salute you if you do like that path and if you do like that plane. I think that it is not a bad idea to do this, and I don't think it's particularly a sad place to be, but I definitely do feel that there is a different way to see the world, and there's a different light that will find you if you have something outside of the system. So outside of the system of talking slowly and being kindly and being careful and being humble, there are other worlds. And this is where Jupiter in Aries is very strong. Mars is just in the last degrees there. Mars is meeting the North Node at the end of the month, also, I got to tell you. And yes, Mercury does catch up to the Sun and even skips ahead of the Sun eventually. But we have to be very, very quiet and careful, I think, for some reason in some people's lives to be able to afford that grand change. So this is a very, very literal thing. Like, I save my money, I can afford. Like, I do the work, I get paid, I get privileges. I help my mother, she's kind to me. I help my daughter, she's well behaved. So this is where we get this repetitive cycle of the fourth house. And what is the fourth house? It's the hereditary patterns in the family unit. It is the home, it is safety and respect and peace and kindness. And it is also a little naughty because it can be competitive. As Cancer eventually does turn into Leo the King, it can be a little bit sensitive, it can be a little bit derogatory, it can be judgmental, it can be manipulative. So some of the time, all of that stuff is just wanting to get something, and sometimes getting it out of that one person or two people, whoever you're working with, that cannot necessarily serve you or can do anything for you. So it's trying to make impressions like, here, I will heal you, here, I will bring you, I will do it. So one of the better ways to address this Cancer time is ask yourself, do I really need that which I'm doing? You know, can I really benefit from this which I'm part of? Do I really like it that I'm doing this? Do I really have the fear or like the territorial consciousness to be like this? So this really, really depends. You know, you don't have to do this. So like, I mean, I trust you guys. If you are very, very good with your tactics, with cooking and cleaning and sprucing and helping and massaging and taking care of people and being like a social person and a carer, or like somebody who's very, very whimsical and lovely and lush in a private, secluded place, that is something that is fine. I'm also going to be partaking in some of this as I'm starting to open this retreat center here. I'm starting to take care of people here in Peru. But there's also another story and another life. So there are some people that are brought up on family histories. There's some people that brought up on Catholicism, religion, I don't know, Hinduism, any kind of trajectory that makes you feel like I'm going to be promised the good life. I will be kept around. I will deserve a place in society. I will deserve a place to be. I will be pleased and thankful and grateful for my result while I'm doing that which another person likes, or while I'm doing that which is perfect and fine. Like I'm sprucing up my hair, I'm painting my nails, I'm cooking the dessert, I'm making friends. And this is not a bad way to be. But I trust there is another level and another layer and another layer and another layer to what you can do here. So this is not about sharp movements and edges and corners. This is not necessarily about wiping out or erasing your path. This is not necessarily about taking care of things in a completely rude or even ambiguous way. It's not about being rude or risk-taking, but for some people it might have to be. So this is not about being protected and being serviceable or being kind or kinded to, although some of it is about smoothing and moldering and kind of like loving each other and caring for each other. I definitely do understand there is like this one hand rubbing the other, but at the same time, I also don't believe it. I feel that there is a next level conversation to be had with ourselves and our psyche and what we really want to do and what we've really come to be and come to deserve on this planet. So sometimes it's about being in kindergarten again. This is about playing with clay in different colors. This is about plasticine. For some people, this is about things that work at home. I'm just trying to do this. It doesn't even matter. Like, it's mismatched. It's not perfect. Some of the most beautiful therapies and technologies come from child's play. And there's an eternal factor to this life. And maybe your ancestors are knocking at the door. It's like before your mother made these laws, before your grandmothers made her make these laws, before her mother made her think that she should make laws at all, there was another world. So this is not about the past necessarily, but I think for some people there's no need for therapy. Just basically play with some clay or just sing a song. I think there is a very, very deserving part of you that wants to just dance and maybe sometimes also wants to lie. And I think that is something that we really, really need to know about. So lying and fib-telling and story-making, all of that is not maybe so deserving now because of sometimes, depending on the story, how hard it can be to undo and unblock the clogs that are there because of lying and certain temperamental changes, because of being a little whimsical and a little bit less than respectful. Sometimes we don't know what to do with ourselves and our minds and our psyche, but it is kind of like a gentler way to go to enjoy whim and storytelling. Maybe for some people it's fortune telling, maybe some people it's money based in completely different arithmetic. It's like pseudo real. So all of that, including television and movies, including making up stories as you go, including sewing unwearable clothes or wearing unwearable garments, including making things, imagining things, writing stories, being somebody not so real, as a way of the arts, yeah, because the next sign after Cancer, and also the next way of you, or the next way to sort of like help yourself or deserve who you are. So it's not like I'm making the best loaf I can make, I'm making the best bread. This is about getting your hands dirty, experimenting, making some mistakes, burning or scorching your bread, not knowing how to do it, not knowing what to serve it with. So there is like a less than perfect world and a less than structured dialogue between people. So it's not like, oh, hush now, daddy's gonna be home, we must spruce up the house. It's not like that. Though I definitely understand why people try for that. It's a very interesting question of perfection and imperfection. So Cancer is about congealing, emulsifying, and creating certain results and making respect, making family, making a person respect you or respond to you in a certain way. But try not to miss your point. So like some of the time we go for perfection, we miss the whole thing. So for me, like say being younger, actually, it was very, very nice sometimes not to have made the best I could have made. And also, as an artist or as a fortune teller or a person that talks, I definitely understand that certain things are ugly or unperfect. And in this little place is your freedom and your sentimentality. So, when we have everything just perfect and just right, although it can be incredibly exemplary and fine, like, wow, look at this beautiful pot plant. Look at that beautiful couch. Look at how I dressed today. Wow. There is something very rude and freakish about it. And also, sometimes in this type of passage, especially with this Jupiter, this soul seeking Jupiter, it's like, well, actually, there was this really ugly person at the party. Like, they were dressed horribly and they looked down the floor. And when I spoke to them, I didn't even think about what I was saying. And then they became me. And when they were talking, I felt every single move they were doing and every single motion in their mind took over me. And I realized who they were. So, this kind of like interesting gift of shame, and pain and vulnerability being also perfect and also deserving, and all of these freaky things and freaky character traits that we have about ourselves, and the freedoms that we have inside, and the inability to be tamed, and also that inability also to be open about some things, all that fragility can't fully be yet explained in word, but it can be fully seen and in a way sown or readdressed through media, through ideas that you see on TV and social media or other media alike, through YouTube channels. You can find things that you like on the internet, or you can see things around. You can find that next voice or that next world. I don't think it's necessarily about seeking the truth, but it is something precious that we're looking for. There is a pearl inside the shell feeling. And it sometimes comes from pain and lust and love and art and creation and nervousness and sensitivities and exoticism and vulnerabilities and sexuality and depth and distortion, like all of these little flavors, all of these little flakes of you, all of these little shards of who you've ever been, your stories and your passages in your past lives, as they say, or your previous concepts and previous self conceptions can feel so flavorful and so good, and all of these little forgotten materials. So, some of the time, it's beautiful to find vulnerability in a moment and remember how you were. Like, say, I can't tell you how to do it because sometimes these compassions and these links between you and the DNA strands between people and these conscious or unconscious connections isn't just about a clean kitchen and a set table. It's not just about having a beautiful lovemaking session or loving yourself and giving yourself a spruce, although some of it is like that. It's not just this, but while we are looking for that adventure with another person, there's a huge lizard outside. I'm so happy. There's a lizard just out my window, sorry. While we're looking for that incredible feeling, okay, can't concentrate. While we're looking for that incredible feeling, we're actually missing the blueprinting or the sensitive energy that happens without us noticing. It's really hard to talk about this because it doesn't usually take place because you want it to. So that chemical isn't going to just visit your mind because you want it to. That person is going to respect you because you want them to. It is an unconscious divine element of sentimentality, peace, and prose, and ugliness, and disrespect, naivety, and health, and uncleanliness, and sensitivity. Because we are on earth, you guys, so it's got to have like rigidity to be whole. So there's a lot that goes into, for example, creation of a life, like creation of a child. There's a lot that goes into many lifetimes and styles of you putting themselves into just the one beautiful pearl. So what are pearls made of? Pearls are made of debris and sand and things that sometimes kind of blow in, you know. So, like, when we want to grow into that next stage and become that next phase of ourselves and become that beautiful woman or that beautiful speaker or that incredible artist or incredible poet, as Leo is the next sign of the greater development of oneself through the arts, or greater development of oneself through one's own heart. It does not have to be neutral necessarily. It is just more important to feel sensitized, and sometimes what makes you feel emotional or sensitive is just a memory of a memory of a memory, and a quantum of a quantum. So that means that, for example, having a beautifully sliced piece of bread and having a lovely view to look at isn't necessarily for you. And that's really interesting for me. So sometimes I think that a lot of us women, we ask, like with past relationships and partnerships, what could I have done more? Like, what could I have given that person more? I was so in love with this person. I was so giving. I was so fragile. I was so beautiful. And then that person didn't attach to me. So we're looking at broken homes and broken families, and also the respect needed to really conceive a quantum love. And some of the time, it's not about, your waist to hip ratio. It's not about your skin color necessarily. It's not about your work or how you cook or the contrast that you've been through, or anything like that. It's not about the other woman. It's not about anybody. It's just about quantic space being there, and the love and the aroma of a true happy marriage, or a happy family unit, or a happy anything that comes together and stays together and doesn't need to move, doesn't need to change. I don't want you to, I wouldn't even think about you going. I don't even want to think about you not existing. This kind of congealing that Cancer brings, is it necessarily for you right now if it's not happening? Or maybe it was never for you. Maybe you were too busy putting yourself together, putting your work together, putting your home together to really be able to connect here. It's more about the friendship and the moments. It's not necessarily the person. It's like the vibrational fidelities matching and mixing beautifully. You don't have to be one together. You don't have to be exactly in the same course. And this is the wonderful thing about friendship in the moment, or with the quantum security that you make together. So we're talking about very deep and deepening friendships, as the last sign was Gemini. So it's not just about, hey guys, what's up? This is my face. This is my body. This is what I do for a living. This is not like that now. So we don't have that special space anymore of just causing a little bit of ruckus and like, hey guys, I want to tell you about my dream and my vision, and come what may, I'm going to share it with you. So the time for that is now to come to an end, and to become a little bit more silent and safe. So for example, you won yourself something or somebody in the last month, or you've made yourself something special, something that feels like it's sliding through you, like it's working with you. It's like there's another person in your life, or there is another frequency, or there is another thing that you're doing, and it feels like it is working with you, and it's helping you grow, and it's helping you transform. And maybe there is a person on the phone, maybe they're not there, but through messaging each other, you get that really sweet, it's like slow cooked stew feeling. It's just it's so like melt in your mouth. That's what Cancer is like. I get it. And we don't usually want that something. So that's the unusual and the ugly part of Cancer. So you don't need to struggle here. Say like, why did I feel so many feelings for that person? They're the wrong gender, or like they have the wrong position in life. This is not my divine principle. And it's really difficult. So like when you're actually smoothing and glowing and gliding through something, and then you understand, oh my gosh, I don't have any feelings for me left. I'm somehow not necessarily in service, but I'm amazed, and I'm like in this trance over something or somebody else. Sometimes people feel that about their babies. Sometimes people feel that about their work, and it doesn't have to be beautiful and pure. It is going to inevitably be that, as this time is about etching and showing and molding the edges into something more special and specific, but it can't fully grow with you until it's going to care for you back and it's more balanced. So this is a way that life is formed. This is not about, okay, I want this guy to be my husband. Let's sign the paper. He lives with me. I'm going to live in his place. We're going to mature together. We're going to build a bridge. We're going to get over it. This is not about fighting. It's not about this kind of like style of marriage. That's never going to help you. It's never going to choose anything for you. It's about the unreal. It's like, no matter what, I'm still talking to this guy online. I don't even know why, or like, no matter what, I'm still having these friends around. They come around. Or like when I watch this movie, I feel blessed. It's an unbelievable feeling. I swing in this hammock and everything is done. There are certain sweet spots. There is a sweet spot also for me. Yeah, so like sometimes, like you reach a sweet spot and you are like a little bit amazed, but also disgusted. Like, I can't believe that was that part of me. Sometimes it's a very, very interesting way that we reach it. Like, there was a moment today where I reached that sweet spot and I didn't even know how to face it. I mean, like, I've been so down and I don't know what is going on sometimes with me, right? And I think I, like a lot of other people, experience disconnection or turbulation. And I had like a lot of my history in the gay community and the pride community, and also I know a lot about the transgender scene, and I had all these different views on it, and I kind of closed that whole box, and I forgot it, and I forgave myself, and I just left it like that. And now, like, I'm faced with this interesting feeling. Like, I saw a singer today online. Their name is Charlotte, and they're from Russia. So if you just look up Charlotte, it's like this very queer person, and they make the most whimsical songs. And I watched a few of their videos, and it touched me, and I felt it. And I felt pleasure, like, for example, Tommy Cash. I feel pleasure from that. I feel incredible faith and hope and freedom. And watching these kind of like very goofy people make dreams come true in a way, in a very, very crazy way. And also they are like a very interesting window into society and what society really means, what human is. And like Little Big, like there is like a band called Little Big, or a Die Antwoord. I really like the freak factor music. So that's the thing. It's a very interesting thing. So like no matter how like far I go into like healing and different modalities, and then understanding that as inside me is a very, very complicated aspect of my psychology that I don't understand unless I go into that extra factor. So looking at freaky facts online, looking at Victorian psychology, looking at people around the world, looking at tombs, looking at ancient history and artifacts, looking at the freak factor of life has always helped me associate. So I think maybe that is something also for you. Like if you like my materials, maybe unconsciously you enjoy that side of me. So like that's something that I think, made myself with without really showing myself that concept. So sometimes there will be an factor about something that is really hard to explain. There are sometimes tactile or sensory feelings and things that might be more obvious to you than, for example, trying so hard to spruce up and clean up or staying in bed and having a sulk. Sometimes there is a flavor, there is an aroma, there is a certain sound or a noise, there is a joke, there's a cartoon that you watched when you were a child, or there is another stronger and more fantastic and realistic, more meaty, more real strategy that comes out of who you are or who you were, based on very, very curious design. So it's not about the plastic face and the best haircut you can have, and having your hands together in prayer position and doing your yoga asanas. Although I've been very, very interested in that as a reader, the Zen philosophy also, like helping people have a very, very nice structure to their day, helping with discipline, and helping other people grow themselves from a certain rigidity. There's also that other side of reality, which I think Cancer really asks about, also with Lilith in Cancer at the moment as well. And Ceres at the beginning, also there, at the beginning of the month. And Eros and eventually Sappho, and also Venus coming into Cancer. So you see there's a very, very nice emotional and almost like ultra sensory feeling. We don't want to explain it in words for now. We can't fully recognize, but eventually it will be. It's not necessarily about, like, for example, experiencing rises and falls, infections and disease and decay and facing something in the body, but for some people definitely it is a month about facing decay, like for example seeing a dentist or seeing a teacher or seeing somebody that can help you unravel unbearable or like choking emotional states or physical states. But to me it's not all about that. I actually feel it's not just about this at all. I think it's more about consciousness streamlining itself into a more plausible, streamlined, careful, and loving way of being. And for some of us, it is about acceptance. It is about acceptance of other beings. And I think for sure, having parasites or having bacterial infections or anything like that, part of it is about surrendering and helping. And also sometimes it is about surrendering to the fall and falling before you can emulsify, understand, or get to know yourselves, different selves, different aspects of yourself, or the consciousness between you and another person or another being. And I feel that it's also very, very plausible to have respect now, finally, for things that were done to you, have happened. If you want that extra homework, that's a very, very specific thing. And to feel how pain and pleasure sometimes can be very close, and understand that sometimes from a sense of hurt or a sense of emotionality comes a sense of sweetness and kindness. So we don't just grow into good people by repeating a certain inner monologue and working hard. It's more like facing ourselves and each other in multifaceted and sometimes multitasking ways, and growing within each other. And this is a very, very, very weird concept to me, because I've been disassociated sometimes, how we grow in each other. So it's like you've planted you and me, or I planted me and you, and there's little seedlings and they're growing. And sometimes it's interesting how we affect each other's consciousness and how we structure our lives based on each other's blueprints, and how we get attached to a message, or we become one with another person's window into the world, and then we can't really allow it to go. It's like when you really feel somebody in your heart, it's just so crazy to imagine that person is no longer going to be there, or it's just very weird. And it's a very tight line of hope. And I definitely do understand people that are going through a war at the moment, or a war in their inner psyche, and it's so hard for us all to be at such a distance. And I feel that with the current experiences in the world, there is such incredible need for platonic simplicity and consciousness between each other, and to hold on to that person that you once felt a dream with, and to hold on to these emotional or sensual experiences which have once rebirthed you, and not just to give it all away. Because I do definitely understand, as a person that's been incredibly transformational in my own life, not just in the life of others, I definitely use a lot of Scorpio energy. I just love to transform. I love to build new bridges and burn the old stuff down, and I don't even give it half a thought sometimes. Also, as a product of the age, and as a person in preparation for the coming age, I definitely have just given it all out. There is something about growing stronger, wiser, and being able to live longer through retention, and not necessarily retention, but just attention to what you felt or feel is holy, or holier than the normal moments. And sometimes it does involve crying, sometimes there is jealousy, sometimes there is a spike of some sort, or there's an anger or frustration. But they're all hard feelings only for a little bit. I think that sometimes it's beautiful to see how a very unpure or even risky situation could have eventually flourished into a very pure-hearted, sentimental, human, and caring love. And I think we all have to get to that point inevitably of acceptance and resonance, even with those horrible people, even with that bad person over there that said those words to you, if there were spikes in your body or your endocrine health, or if you felt all of those feelings, if you felt very attached to somebody, there's no real need to burn yourself down to a husk there. You don't necessarily need to stagnate in these things either, but it's important to no longer disrespect or shun other people, and those that have hurt you no longer sentimentally become unavailable, rigid, and unjust in a way. Unjust. It's not fair. It's unjust if you have met somebody, or if you've been part of somebody's life, or if you've been in a certain type of group of people or situation where you are now no longer but harboring anger. And that also goes back to the family home, as I'm sure a lot of you guys that listen to me do have some turbulence, maybe potentially at home or in your mind about the home, which is very neutral, I think, these days. It's like, who doesn't? We have to somehow start to resolve these ancient issues. So especially, like the mother and daughter feud, or the husband and wife feud, the ex-boyfriend and the ex over here, ex over there, and the lawsuits and the territories and the given objects and the stolen things, and the broken life and the stolen time, and all of these things. We can't continue to grow on that level. Also, we are making fractals and blueprints, as Cancer does, leave something permanent behind, being a cardinal sign, and a fixed sign being after, we don't really want to grow madly into anything. We don't necessarily want to become that person, that thing, or that poet, or that special person. You don't necessarily have to be famous for this. You don't have to be outstanding, but sometimes an outstanding person is felt or found during a Cancer month just simply because we don't want to feel those drab, sad, dark, bulky, heavy, angular feelings. It's not about that large space of time that it took, like to forgive and forget and finally realize something, or just kind of climbing out of that shadow, climbing out of that disrespect, just try to get some air. That's something that sometimes Cancer does. This is what makes us feel angry and sad and frustrated in our bodies. It makes us feel like we're not anybody, and it's all kind of just cluster focusing itself upon us. We can't grow that now. We have to somehow feel out that volatility as something that could have been either sweet from the start or sweet in the end. We've got to find faces to it. We've got to unpack it. It's not just this big block of hate. So for those people that have been really messed about and that have not really been able to recover their genetics, they have not been able to recover their softness and their naturalness, it can't just be a big block. Also, I want to say a little bit about growing up in Russia, post-communist Russia. It was very interesting when I was a kid. But yeah, I really believe a lot of the craziness and psychosis and sensitivity and hardship and cruelty was just because we lived in giant blocks of flats. So there were these like 10-story apartments, full of hate. And I think what that was is just a removal from nature and natural force of life. So sometimes it's not necessarily you, it's just how you've been brought up or what is standing in between you and other people. Like, for example, doing things online all the time is this big neurotic block sometimes for me. I think being in between people, being in a box, being in a cubicle, having to do things only a certain way, being in a rigid system that you don't necessarily believe or trust can be volatile. And though it is very versatile, it's hateful and it's not very trusted. And here we are, so we've got to grow into that and allow mold and fungus and sadness and depression and sometimes sexual or emotional experiences to take these blocks away, so these karmas get eroded by very weird life experiences sometimes, and a weird heartache that we've got to go through just to melt that big space between ourselves and life. And I think if you are somebody like me, or you have a lot of karma, you just have some very, very dark memories, like concentration camps for me on my father's side, or like war on my mother's side, you know, like having very, very dark experiences sometimes, as that shock or that damage still grew inside of me as well. I definitely now understand, as a grown person, as a therapist, that it's a very, very, very scary time sometimes, when there are people living through that which your ancestors have lived through, like what is happening in the world. And also, it's a very, very sad and scary time, or energy, to understand that it's not necessarily a repetitive pattern in the world, but it does still hold place. So just having all that empathy and just holding it within our hearts is something that we could sometimes do. Sometimes an empath is just a person that's trying to get rid of their ancestral karmas and burdens. And if you like, you can light a candle, say a prayer for the world, for the situation that is happening. And there's also sometimes just an intimacy and innocence of the moment. You don't necessarily have to flick on the news and know everything and worry your poor, poor heart about what is going on these days. It's not just about this, although it can happen this way. I think it's more about molding and modeling yourself anew. And sometimes it's like a child in play. I mean, sometimes it's like your first project. It's like working with clay, working with art, I don't know, like giving someone a massage, like fiddling around, like rubbing your own feet, you know, sitting on a rug, you know, sitting there alone. You know, like some of the time it's very childlike states that mold you and help you not feel so left behind. Or there are states that the universe provides. Also be unafraid of the flow that sometimes happens, like, here, have a client, here, talk to this person, do this, do that, hey, we want you here, come here, like family's inviting you here, you got to go get in the car now. So sometimes there's like a fast-paced flow, as Mercury would be eventually in Cancer, to give you that maybe even nasty feeling of having to go somewhere and having to work or having to be fast. But that sometimes often does bring a key. So sometimes it's an interesting way how the daily process of evolution, as the opposite sign to Cancer is Capricorn, does mold you and subject you maybe to some stories, or make you be a part of something or somebody's life, but it does take care of you somehow. So don't be afraid if there is a very, very boring or a very fast situation you've got to be a part of. But there are ways out of this, so I'm just letting you know. There's just a little stretch maybe for this video. If you ever did want to work for yourself, and if you really like people like myself, you know, that are free, or you like people that just do whatever they want, and they sit around if they want, and they work hard if they want, and they have more of a organic flow in their life, and they're travelers, or they're artists, or they just like kind of like surrendered people. Like, there's not that many of us at the moment, but we were there a lot, even in the last century. There are lots of us around, I think, by the end of this century as well. So we're going back to this kind of like, people say like a hobo person. You mean like a hobo? Like, what are you doing? Like, you're just walking around with your bag? Like, what are you doing? I think it's not just about that. It's like about having a formlessness to your nature, not being able to be pinned down. So eventually, not having a photo everywhere, not having to dress a certain way or be a certain person, not having to marry, not having to bring up children, not having to be part of the world that everybody is part of today, seemingly. And also not having to be true and correct and just and wear that suit all the time. We sometimes exist only for a minute in other people's lives. So the people that are open to roam and free-range people. You know how you have free-range eggs, free-range chickens? There's also free-range people. So they just like walk around. They don't have to be anybody. They don't need to go back to the chicken coop at the end of the day. these people are here. It's just important to know why that person is being brought into that state of their life. And sometimes what we do is very wise, which is wise. So how we talk to other people, how we touch each other, how we look at flowers and natural aspects of life, or how we talk to ourselves in our heads is so feeling or so caring. There are often ways in which nature, other people, or just reality will provide other ways of living, other ways of life. But you see, this is not a glamorous, like, hey, I won $1,000,000 and I'm going to go spend it on luxuries. It's not like that. I think that's the extreme of the commercial world, of the corporate world. It's not that condescending anymore. I think it's like you kind of flux between things. You're in the ebb and flow, and sometimes there's nothing, and sometimes that's all right, and sometimes there's ample amount of something, that's okay. It's like looking at a form of a plant. So when it's ample and when it's fine, and it's ample and it's fine. How that leaf is formed, the sensitivity you have when you talk or you speak to somebody, or how kind you can be just because it's the moment. It's not because you are interested in getting something nice from that person. You have to be nice. It's not like that anymore. It's like when you dress yourself, or when you talk about your life, or when you think about things, you start to kind of mold the aspects. That's what a magician is. So a lot of us that are working the arts or therapies, or that are like free roaming, like free range people, we kind of breathe humor and life and light, and also sadness and depression sometimes, and whim and hurt sometimes, but also the answer to all things and to every aspect of who we are. So this starts from when you get up in the morning to when you go outside, to what you do every day. So this is not about being a weirdo. It's more just about forming completely different alternatives for yourself. So this is where you're self-emulsifying the moment. You don't have to speak that thing to be able to be heard. You don't have to do that thing in order to be paid. You don't have to dress a certain way to be accepted. You don't have to be that kind of person to be in that phase of life. That is really, really coming through now. So these alternative cultures that were preparing you for it, like a hipster movement and a hippie movement and all these different movements, and all this new age, like generation Z or something, I don't know, or X, or whatever generation it is, I don't know. It's all starting to just be a molding feeling of why not? Why? Why can't you imagine it? It's like, sure, you thought always you'd be with a man, but why not see a woman? You always thought that you would be doing the 9 to 5, but why not do the 9 to 5? So this is a very, very nice kind of a lump sum feeling that a person says or feels or does. So this is a feeling of nourishment next to another person, just simply because they're not by the book and they're not by the page and they're not stressing you out and they're not holding you hostage with their time. So that's the thing. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. Maybe we could talk about magic more in the next month ahead. I'm Polina. I am a channel. I'm a psychic. I'm doing a lot of work on the internet. I am busy a lot. Most days I work hard. But if you like me, and if you'd like to know more about me, there's a website, and I fixed up a little dream here. I would like to know people face to face and not just talk to them online. I've basically not participating in my Facebook or Instagram. I'd like to actually feel what a person is and know them, as I feel we're ready for a change. So if you want to, you can come visit me in Peru. You don't have to do it this way. So you could always come to Peru and do things yourself. So meaning you can always research the different hotels, and you can do it yourself. I'm not trying to take money from anybody. I'm not trying to skittle you around. I'm making a very, very transparent retreat. Every price is broken down. You see exactly what you're getting. You don't have to do this. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about me and what I'm doing. So basically I'm starting a new life and a new journey, and I don't want to let go of this yet. And eventually I'll be doing something very different with my life, quite possibly. It's just that I'd like to have a very nice, smooth transition with people. I would like to have them around at my home, where I'm staying. It's not this place. It's It's a very different place. It's in the jungle. It's beautiful. It's an eco retreat. There's food. There's nature. There's nature walks. There's also, yes, there's ayahuasca. But because of the times and because of irresponsibility of ayahuasca use, I definitely do get it. A lot of people fall madly in love with the substance, so they don't know how to really work themselves out. So if you care for yourself, you don't have to do this at all. Though I definitely understand a lot of people have done it and caused damage, and also some people haven't, and some people just like to use it. And then there's some people that know that they want to use it, but they don't know where to go. It is recently criminalized in Mexico. So there's only like the 3 countries where you can take it, which is, wait a minute, yeah, Costa Rica, Peru, and Brazil. This is only illegal. And and it's partially legal in Spain, Chile, and USA. So if you really would like to take this plant, you don't have to. But I do understand people come here and they pay a block of money, like extreme money, to a shaman or a village, even if you go to a very, very rustic roots retreat, and then they come out scared. So, like, instead of this, I've come to see that there is going to be an influx of ayahuasca use, as we do definitely have poisons in our bodies. A lot of people have a lot of toxins in their bodies because of certain things that everybody had to compulsively do. And we do have a healing crisis coming up in the next year and a half. But if you do want to get yourself better and you do want to know yourself, you don't need to do this plant. You don't need to do this, but it does help you. So I'm sharing myself as a guide for this plant. I have an incredible amount of experience, and I have a gift for it. I understand it. So shamanism I do and practice for real, so I'm not just all talk. And I definitely do have a nice center and a few people that I really trust and love. I have got a really good guy doing this with me now, so it's not just like a guy that picked it up and tried it and loved it and now makes money from it. It's an actual shaman from Pucallpa, so he's a Shipibo person. He works with ancient, tribal, archaic technologies. When it comes to ayahuasca, he will give you the dream, so he knows how to do this. But he's not the only one working with you. So I also understand there's a lot happening in the Shipibo culture. They do have wars, they have promiscuity, they do have certain possession as well. So there's a protective barrier between this operation and ours. So we're not offering this person as part of our retreat. We are working without them on the grounds, and we want to help you smooth out your life. And there's lots of other tactics and things you can do, to change your thinking patterns and change your life, such as detox and sweat lodge and massage and chiropractic. And we have a gym. There's a local gym that you have to go to town for. There's lots of stuff that is happening around us. If you've ever wanted to detox and get to know your body, if you wanted to meet me and just hang out, I'll be there and I will overlook. So I'm not just going to be like, yeah, come to the Polina retreat. I will talk at you for half an hour and then go. No, it's nothing like that. So basically get to sit with me and I'll take a look at you and you'll take a look at me and we'll hang out. And if you have any questions, you can get a session with me. But mostly it's just human. So I'm not just plugged in like, hey, Polina, can you tell me about my mom? What happened to my dad? Why am I like this? Can you tell me what's happening in my ovaries? I can do that, but it's not something that I am feeling open to just do willy-nilly all day long, although sometimes I do that. I get inspired and I do that. It would be really nice to see you heal yourself and take that power into your own hands and develop your own psychic ability. If you want to study astrology or shamanism, you can do it with me. If you are gifted, if you are naturally meant to do it, you can do it with me. Not many people need to do it, but sure. And if you really, really want, you can learn about working with certain toxins in the body, working with, for example, plastic surgery, how to move toxins from certain body parts and how to help you heal your lymph and your blood, because I've done it. Also, if you want to learn about depression and psychic violence, psychic abuse, if you want to, obviously, so I'm on YouTube, you can imagine what happens in my life. You can imagine yourself anew. I can help you guys work out family trauma, psychic trauma, sexual violence, sexual trauma, like quite a lot of stuff. And honestly, you don't have to talk it out. Sometimes it's just the present moment that helps you heal that karma. So I'm very open to teach and to learn, because it's never just one way. So if you'd like to see me, I'm doing it very cheaply actually. I'm going to even tell you how much I charge. It's under 500 for, actually I don't have it in front of me right now. It's like under 500 for a week. And yeah, it's $479 for a week, $763 for 2 weeks, $1,040 for 3 weeks, or 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and $1,396 for a month. And that includes airport transfers, company, overlooking, and food and shelter. And you don't have to take any medicines, you don't have to drink, you don't have to do anything like that. You could just hang out. I'm not interested in other people necessarily using this plant, it's not needed. But we do have quite a menu, and I have an incredible team of people that can provide you services if they're needed on the day. Sometimes nature heals you. You like sit in the retreat, you're like, wow, I feel like I got this. You know, you can blog, you can do your stuff, you can do your work. We got Wi-Fi in different places, like more stable Wi-Fi elsewhere. But yeah, like it's a very, very easy, smooth ride. And the reason I'm doing this is because I'm working my life out, and sometimes it's easier when there's family around. It's so nice to see people, and it would be also a very good opportunity for me to transition from doing things online to physical work. So that is basically what I'm doing. If you'd like to join me and my friends, you can. If you're not sure still what I'm talking about, you can write me an email and I'll share with you, and I'll give you like all our like practitioners, what they're doing, all the different hikes, and you know, all of that. I can also provide you that. If you have any questions for me, if you want to book a reading, you can do that. Everything is in the section below. Thank you very much. It's been lovely chatting to you. Yet another very long video. I hope it's been fun or interesting, and I hope that you have a beautiful month. Bye.